Hey there, welcome to my studio here in New York City. I'm Daniel Norton, and today we're going to take a look behind the scenes of a promo image shoot I did for Raquel Lily. All right, so we've worked together before, did a live stream for Adorama, we'll put a link to that. And she's really fun, and she was coming up to New York, and she was like, hey, I need some promo images, I'm doing this duet with my friends. So I said, cool, that works out really well. Come by and we'll make a video. So this is actually a pretty simple shot. We knew ahead of time what we were looking to do. We wanted to shoot kind of an editorially fashioned shot, basically where in editorial fashion, the clothes, right? But in this case, the clothes and the subjects matter the most. So real simple portrait using a gray background here from Savage and a real kind of flat light, but I wanted to add some dimension, and let's talk about how I did that. All right, so I have two lights going on here. What is effectively my key light is this Profoto B1x shot through a 4-foot Chimera frame. This is creating a light that's covering the subject and the background, giving us a nice even wash of light, but kind of a flat and boring light, which is fine because we wanted it to have a little bit of flatness to it. The second light, which is kind of there to shape the light, you could almost call it a second key, but it's really a fill light, and that's a Profoto 3-foot octa with a grid. That's really there to add some kind of jawbone definition and some highlight to the image, because if I just went with the Chimera frame, it would have been fine, but it would have been very, very, very flat, and we only wanted it very, very flat. Okay, the gear for this is going to consist of two lights. In this case, I'm using Profoto B1x's. Now, you may have seen me use the B10s a lot. I like those for portraits in general, but when I'm shooting essentially a group shot, right, there's two people, and I know I want to make it really even, I know I'm going to back my lights up really far and use big sources, I want as much power as possible. Not because the B10s couldn't have given me the right exposure, but because the B1x's are going to recycle faster. So I've got two B1x's. This one here, I'm going to shoot through a 4-foot Chimera silk, and I've got another one here inside of my 3-foot Profoto octa. This actually has a grid on it because the grid is going to help add contrast, right? Sometimes we use grids because we're trying to control the spill of the light. In this case, I want the light to spill everywhere, but having the grid will add a little contrast, and that's really what I'm using this light for. The silk light is going to give us the big flat light. This is going to add contrast to the kind of the faces of our subjects. Sometimes we like to overthink our lighting, and it's easy to fall into this idea that we want to use like, kickers and gels in the background and all these other things, but sometimes very simple lighting is what you want for the look you're going for. So in this, two lights, easy. What's important here? The subject, their clothing, the attitude, and that's what we want to capture, and sometimes simpler light will help you do that. Okay, so we made a series of portraits here. These are two that really stand out to me as having the vibe we were looking for. They've got this kind of editorially fashioned vibe, but at the same time, there's a connection with the subject. And of course, being musicians, you're going to have fans, they want to connect with their subject. So they're both effectively lit the same way, which is a big flat light from the front, right, creating the overall light, and then basically that 3-foot octa giving us that little bit of contrast, a little bit of shape that you can see here and here. When you're working commercially, it changes the perspective a bit. When you're working for yourself and you're doing photography because you love it, it's a hobby, even if you're doing portraits for people on some level where they don't really, know exactly what they want, they just know that they like your style, you can kind of do what you like, right? And they're just like, oh, great, you took good pictures. But when somebody wants something that's going to be used in a more commercial way, you've got to really consider, how is this thing being used? What's going to be the best way to put across the idea? And sometimes if it's a smaller client, you can work with them on those ideas. If it's a bigger client, sometimes they just give you a layout. And we've done live streams, we've talked about that before. But this is actually a nice challenge. And sometimes it might be fun if you're just starting out to reach out to people that you know maybe and say, hey, what kind of thing would you like? You tell me what you want and I will make it for you. And that's a good test to see how much you'll enjoy being a commercial photographer. So I hope you guys enjoyed this behind the scenes look, so to speak. Let me know what questions you have down in the comments below about how you might work through a commercial project and budgeting and stuff like that, because that's something that maybe was outside the scope of this video, but something we can talk about. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get all notifications, and I'll see you next time on set.